Hi guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Major roster developments going on last night. Some rumours that Artists could be returning to North American VALORANT with Cloud9, although those were shut down very quickly indeed. But what is going on with Sentinels? Continued trials over the last couple of days, some key names being excluded from these scrims, and some key names being spotted in pretty much every single one. Does that imply the direction that Sentinels are looking to go, given that some names aren't there that often, and some names most certainly still are? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Let's get right into things. A lot's happening yesterday. We're going to start here with Apeks VALORANT, who, after getting relegated, they're out of here, right? And it's understandable. It is actually a real shame, I think. But as they say, we want to thank everyone who's been part of our journey over the last few years in the, the VCT, just trying to win one match through the VCL, but we've decided to pause our Valorant operation. So they may consider returning, but when they chose to come back for 2024, got through for 2025, due to budget reductions heading into the VCT, it fundamentally changed what we had planned. While our disappointing results stem from several factors, this shift had a major impact, they say. So ultimately, while we're confident we could once again build a high caliber roster in the challenger side, the current system no longer aligns with the conditions that initially led us to invest in the space. So this is a very common story that organizations are coming out with and saying, look, the way that Riot are currently doing this, because the understanding was initially that if you qualified, you got a 2-year spot. And that was a pretty big deal, right? Because your 2-year guest slots that would then roll over, that would allow you to get the funding, get the stipend for those couple of years. But the way that it now is, where you have a rolling 1-year spot where you can maintain it if you do well enough, but it's a real challenge to, as far as Apeks are concerned, invest enough to be good enough to stay around, knowing that you've got to invest a lot anyway to get into the VCT to win Ascension, and then once you get there, you've got to invest even more to try and keep it rolling year on year. And the budget doesn't make sense if you've not got the guaranteed 2 years. Now, the way that Riot changed things away from the guaranteed 2-year spot to the rolling 1 year was inevitable and frankly makes sense. But it does mean that for many organizations, it simply doesn't work anymore. So Apeks say they hope to return, but for now, that is not going to be happening. So hopefully they can come back. I think they're a good organization to have in Valorant, but no longer, unfortunately. Let's talk about what was happening in China, because Simon and his boys are unlikely to win Ascension. Probably Dragon Ranger Gaming are going to win it and get their spot back. But Simon has been cooking over the last couple of days. I mean, look at this guy go. Look at this ace. 1, 2, 3, 4. Picks up the 5th as well on the Omen here without too much difficulty. Doesn't even reload. So, Simon's been farming heavily, and he's definitely been turning heads in Chinese Ascension so far. So I thought this is a pretty nice story, actually. But in Ascension, as we say, unfortunately for Simon and his ambitions to make it back into the league, yes, they did win that series yesterday. We'll actually have a look at here some of the numbers. Simon goes 47 in 30. I think especially, that Ascenti was 25 in 13 on the Omen. So he had a good couple of maps here. Any Questions Gaming get the win. They will then play today, in a couple of hours' time, Ambitious Legend Gaming versus Any Questions Gaming. I mean, it's all the classic Chinese team names, isn't it? It's pretty funny. But so Simon and the boys will attempt to win this one to get through to the playoffs. But it's rare atom. It's Dragon Ranger Gaming, especially DRG, of course, really, who will be the favourites to get the job done in the playoffs. But that will be concluded in a few hours' time. We've also got what's happening in the Americas here. So we did get, actually, before we get there, this is the Pacific, just to keep you guys updated with the group stages over there. There's not that many matches that have happened so far, but this is how things look. 6 of these 10 teams will get through to the playoff stage, and the playoffs for them look like this. Again, different to the other regions for some reason, but you know how it is. I think in the Pacific, the key thing to note is that 2 teams make it, right? Because they had both relegations from that scene. Of course, like Nongshim, they can make it back in. Boom Esports, they can make it back in, right? So that's where that looks going into next season. And the Americas, it's Winthrop 6 Karma who made it to the Swiss stage. Red Canids, they dropped out last night. So they played the series, and in the end, it was Winthrop University who took the 2-1 win against Red Canids in the decider game. they drop out and Winthrop continue. So their chances are still alive of making it through. The Swiss stage now looks like this. These are your 8 teams, and over the next few days, the first game actually, a couple of days time on the 17th of October, they'll play the rounds of the Swiss stage, and then the top 4 teams get through to the playoffs, and then we'll find out who gets to the Americas, of course, because G2 are not going anywhere, right? So there is only one slot up for grabs. Quick update on GC as well. EMEA Stage 3 playoffs. This is what that looks like. We know that the Game Changers World Championship is coming up in the relatively near future as well, so there's a lot happening over there. But let's talk about some of the Rostermania stuff, and especially with what Anders had to say over the last few days and what's happening next for him. But his context is around the state of Valorant right now. So here we are on Pearl. There's been several screenshots doing the rounds such as this, and people saying, like, this game is too crazy, what's going on? And it's like, I do get it. I understand that perspective. Most rounds don't look like this, but some rounds certainly do, and they turn heads. Now, the argument might be, understandably, as Anders says, is that, well, hang on a second, right? You look at this screenshot. Is anything here really changing that much? As he says, walls, smokes, and slices, they're unchanged, and Ultimate's footprint, which were nerfed, but not specifically this one. So, you know, the arguments for some is that it's not really going to do what Riot think it might do. There was this funny post going around, nerfing all utility, nothing to take the operator off the line. Just imagine if Wardell came back. So, you know, just seeing Wardell show up on my timeline over the last couple of days, I thought was pretty funny. We also had Scream giving his perspective on the changes, initiators nerfed, spray patterns added. Now, well, as Lothar says, they are attempting to make spraying, if you're a better player and can control it, more viable. But Lothar says, look, there's no spray patterns in the way that Scream implies, but he says initiators have been too dominant for ages, cycling utility every 40 seconds like it's nothing, but it's the start of a healthier meta. So Scream's on board with it, you know, hashtag one tap, and not like the spray patterns are going to matter much for Scream anyway. But I thought it was interesting with his perspective here. Again, initiators, you could argue they're too strong, or they get the utility too quickly. It's not like they're overused in ranked, right? So I think that's one thing that Riot will need to consider in terms of the way that the entire player base will play Valorant, not just what the pros think. Now, Anders been with G2 for some time, but that's no longer the case. So he's looking for a new role elsewhere. Could still be on G2, he says. Decisions are still being made on that one, but he's looking for new adventures, as are plenty of other players as well. Now, Fnatic Boaster, I don't expect that to be changing, but we understand that there are plenty of players that may well be free agents, their contracts may be up, and if they get, you know, stronger offers elsewhere, they may look to go and seek those stronger offers. But that could well be the case at Sentinels. We understand that Zekken, that Gen.G, that we think Zellsis, their contracts are up at the end of this season that's just finished. So in the very near future, when the contracts are officially ended, which, I don't know, could be a month after the World Championship, could be a couple of weeks after the World Championship, although that's now pretty much gone, could be the end of the calendar year. We're not exactly sure when the contracts are finalized technically. The point is that if you're 100 Thieves and you want to get Cryo and Zekken together, that is something you can do without paying Sentinels a buyout. Now, this is pretty funny. So Sen was spotted scrimming Cloud9. They're trialing some new players. Zeppa still been spotted in all of their scrims. Zekken and Kaplan, of course, the coach, player respectively for Sentinels. And then Ardis spotted in the lobby as well. Now, unfortunately, this isn't the real Ardis. Era FPS's Ardis has been seen trialing with Cloud9. I do believe that this is actually Imi on his account. So, yeah, Imi, when he's coaching the team, he steps in on an account called Ardis, which is pretty funny, so he's turning heads. I don't think Ardis is actually there, but who knows, right? Maybe they're just trying to hide something and they're playing the long con. The other thing, though, to mention is some of the Sentinels scrims over the last few days. So VC Scrims has been tweeting quite a lot. He also tweeted out another one, which got deleted for some reason. I think it was with Caillou, maybe was in there as well. Bang wasn't in there, I don't think, and then Zellsis and Narrate were in there. But yeah, the takeaway really was that in many of these scrims, we're seeing Gen.G, we're seeing Zekken, right? They're seeing them scrim Cloud9, for example. But in the vast majority of these scrims that we have seen so far, including this one that was tweeted before then, since disappearing, Zellsis and Narrate were appearing there, right? Now, Of course, we're not seeing every single scrim all the time. We know what Rob Moore said, that they're cycling through pretty much all of their players. They're trialing everyone from their Qubit Academy, so Caillou's getting his chances, Satellite, Redux, we saw him in a scrim as well. But it is interesting to think about, okay, who are they pairing those guys with? Yes, they're going to go through and they're going to trial the Qubit guys. Then they can figure out whether they want to bring in somebody else from a different organization or whether a promotion from Qubit Academy could be in order. But who are they going to pair that with, right? And what does it look like for the rest of the team? Because we're not expecting Gen.G and Zekken to go anywhere of Sentinel's own volition. It is possible that Carmine Corps could go to Gen.G and offer him $2 million a year, and he will take that offer with no buyout required. The same could be true for Zekken and 100 Thieves or some other organization. So Sentinels have to be aware that, you know, it would pay, let's say, to keep hold of players that they at least have under contract so they know they're going to be around. And I do think I rate him as a pretty good player. What's interesting, I think, is that we've not seen Bang in too many scrims, right? So I think that's kind of the takeaway for now, is that we're not expecting Gen.G or Zekken to go anywhere for Sentinel's decision. It's possible that they could get poached away, but I think they, you know, would probably like to stay in Sentinels if the money works, right? And who knows? But Zekken's still been spotted in scrims with Sen. Gen.G's been spotted in several scrims with Sen. And the same is true for Zellsis and Narrate. I think we've seen Bang in maybe a couple of scrims, but certainly in terms of the scrim bucks we've seen over the last few days, we have seen more of Zellsis and Narrate than we have of Bang when they're doing these Qubit Academy trials. So does that mean that Bang is the player most at risk right now on Sentinels? I think quite possibly yes. And look, I think Narrate, as I said, I rate him as a pretty solid player. You know, I think he's still got something to give here, despite a relatively underwhelming season. Bang, I think there is an argument that maybe they could look to upgrade there, but I think also Zellsis is an interesting question. We know how important he is as kind of like a vocal leader and a vibes leader on the team. He's a solid player as well, but I think many wondered at the end of this most recent season as to whether Zellsis would really stay, but also whether a one-man change is enough. We're seeing rumours that Loud, they might be effectively keeping their roster, getting rid of Robbie BK and bringing in an Artzan instead. That's interesting. I don't know if that one-man move is going to totally change the game for them, and I think for Sentinels a one-man change could be enough, but maybe they could consider other things as well. So we're not sure what they're doing. We're going to see loads of scrim bucks continue over the next few days, of course, but the way that things are currently leaning is that Bang could well be on the chopping block, Zellsis and Narrate more likely to stay, and then Gen.G and Zekken definitely scrimming a lot still with Sentinels, although other teams may have something they want to say about that. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.